All right, we shall call the meeting to order. Thank you for attending tonight's school committee meeting. Please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. The next item on our agenda is the hearing of visitors. I do not see any visitors signing in. So we will move on to item 3, which is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is the bundling of routine business of the school committee. It is the opportunity for any school committee member to remove an item for further discussion of a particular or several items. So does anyone want to remove any items tonight under the consent agenda? Seeing none, could someone entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay. Communication. Madam Superintendent, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It does feel like it's been quite a while since we've met, this being our only meeting during the month of July. I want to start by talking about budget and advocacy. Since we last met under the advocacy part, as we awaited the approval of the state budget, and I will have our Chief Budget Officer, Aldo Petronio, join me. And at this point here, I know you have been following. We, of course, have sent you information. The state budget has gone to the governor at this point. He has 10 days, and I believe he got it last Wednesday. So he has 10 days in order to make any changes. That gives time for our House and Senate to take a look at what the governor has proposed before we finally have a budget. But we will go over some of the things that we've talked about all spring. But I do want to talk about under advocacy. We had a meeting in Brockton on June 22nd here at Brockton High School, where we invited a number of people working on our coalition, looking at and carefully following the recommendations from the Foundation Budget Review Commission, looking at the process right now with supporting our schools. We had represented Worcester School District. We had a number of attorneys that are interested in coming on board. We've had a number of educational consultants that are reviewing the work happening with the Foundation Budget Review Commission recommendations and what's happening in the State House. And I will tell you, just this week, I received, we had our MASS, Mass Association for School Superintendents Conference, the first week actually starting on the 10th of July for a week. And I was approached by numbers of people asking where we're at. They are looking for Brockton to take the lead, and we will take the lead. And if you remember, we had taken a group, a number of you actually came with me to Worcester, when we presented the tale of two cities and talked about two urban districts and talked about the struggles under special education, about the low income, about English language learners. We have another invitation because cities are watching, and other districts, suburban districts also. So we have an invitation presently from Holyoke. So Holyoke is Western Mass. They're actually a commissioner's district. They're in receivership right now. The superintendent there is a friend of mine. We started as superintendents at the same time. He eventually became the receiver in Holyoke, and their mayor and their elected officials, meaning their school committee, are inviting us to come and to talk about putting together, again, support for the lawsuit. So I'm going to be opening that up to all of you. So at this point here, I am going to ask Aldo Petronio to come up, and I do want to go over with you our updated budget barometer. So I guess there is, when I sat before you a year ago at this time, there was never any good news. And if you remember, it wasn't just the state budget that didn't come through. It was also numbers of grants that we also were watching at the time. So I think we've passed out to you updated versions.
Yes, it's a budget barometer. There's also what I call a cherry sheet. There. It's the
single-page document. Basically, what I'm showing on here, this is a condensed version of what's actually sent to the city, because it has all the other city aids included. But what you see on here is we began with the governor's budget, FY 2019 governor's budget, the second column in from the left. That was what the governor proposed, and that's what the mayor based our budget on, because you don't know from that point whether you get the House budget, the Senate budget, or the conference committee budget, what actually ends up. So 172.8 million is what the governor proposed in Chapter 70, along with our charter and school choice reimbursements. Jump almost all the way to the right, you see the FY19 conference committee. Now that's what the House and the Senate have sat down and hashed out. As you remember, the House was $1.3 million higher, the Senate was about $2 million higher on the budget overall, so they hashed it out. So in the end, from the governor's budget, we ended up with about $2.5 million more in Chapter 70, about $200,000 more in charter school reimbursement, about $28,000 less in school choice reimbursement. In school choice, what we've paid out to other districts, $320 less, but about $500,000 less paying out to charter school. So overall, we ended up about $3.2 million higher than when the mayor set our budget. So if you take that and go to the budget barometer at the very top in the dark yellow begins with $159,300,000. That was the mayor's budget to us. And the mayor had said that if any additional funds came in, he would pass them our way. So the proposed budget that's in front of the governor right now, I think it's probably on day 4. He has about 10 days to approve it. Is additional $3.2 million. So if we take that, we were earlier at around a $8 or $9 million deficit. So that brings us down to a $5.8 million deficit overall. Go through and you take out the round 1 cuts, the round 2, the round 3, the round 4, all the way through. We ended off at round 6. And today I added on the round 7. So the round 7 is showing that we still have 46 pink slips out there and the amount of money that that's saving in the budget. We still have the 11 do not fills for retirements, the 4 do not fill holds for custodians, the same thing holds for administrative assistants, and the same thing with paraprofessionals. And also on June 1st, the mayor was able to give us $500,000 in FY18 so we could, from the city, so we could use that money to prepay special ed bills for next year. So adding that all in, that brings the deficit actually gone and leaves us with a positive balance of almost $1 million. On the very first page in that green box, it says FY19 budget surplus. So we have $969,000. And with that, the superintendent has the priorities now that she's looking at as far as putting teachers in classrooms.
Before I go into that, and like I said, if you look back at last year, this is certainly better news than we were dealing with a year ago at this time. But the one thing that Aldo and I were trying to decipher today, because we're looking at places like Mass Budget, Mass Association for School Superintendents, school committees, they're trying to analyze still what is happening. So there is some money out there right now with reimbursement from students that were affected that came from Puerto Rico during the hurricane. There's some federal money, we're not quite sure about that. The state money, we are assured of that coming in. So we are looking at also some calculations for poverty. They're looking at the direct certification and districts that were hit hard by that. While I don't want to mislead anybody, and I'm not going to count on anything because we know what has happened with formulas. But at this point here, we will put together and we'll be carefully watching what the legislature is doing around studying those issues. I do want to say also publicly that I want to thank all our elected officials. I've had an opportunity to talk to Senator Mike Brady. I've had conversations at 6 in the morning with Representative Michelle Dubois. I've had numerous conversations with Representative Claire Cronin, and I've had brief conversations with Representative Jerry Cassidy. They are working very hard. But I will tell you there's been a lot of frustration on my part. Because again, there are some things in this Foundation Budget Review Commission that the House is now proposing to study. And I think the time for studying has been the past 4 years. I mean, they've had these recommendations for a long time. We are hanging by a thread with trying to run a school district, trying to deal with all the new mandates. So to me, The one thing that, again, I've had conversation, the study is to go only until, I believe, December 31st, which does bring us to the end of this calendar year. And don't forget, what happens in the month of January is the governor is preparing his budget. So hopefully, with the House asking the Commissioner and DESE to study the impact of that direct certification, that poverty, other recommendations under the Foundation ELLs, under the Foundation Budget Review Commission, we should finally be getting some action. They will understand the communities that are affected. They'll understand the dollars that need to be committed. So while I'm feeling better about where we're at, do not think it's not because of places like Brockton that refuse to accept, the status quo and kick the can so-called down the road. So we're not doing that. So we will also start to put together, as we start to get information as to what's happening for the rest of the summer. When we do talk about that almost $1 million, one of the things we talked about today were our priority areas, and you saw on the last page of the round 7, you see where it says custodians do not fill hold. Same thing for administrative assistants, same thing for paraprofessionals. I want to remind everybody, we made such deep cuts last year. It's almost impossible to get the work done if we're not filling some of these positions. Obviously, I need to open the doors in September, and that is my priority. But that's why you're seeing that do not fill at this time hold. So as we realize additional money or see where the areas are that we have to fill, I want to be able to move on that. That being said, I also brought together our executive team, and they've been well prepared for where the priority positions are. We presently have about 8 at the middle schools. We have about 4 at Brockton High School. And we have, and again, I'm watching the elementary numbers. So June Saber-McGuire has done an excellent job making cuts where we could make cuts because of the pullback of the kindergarten age, the bringing on of the preschool. But we're also watching in some of the areas, I'm seeing some 4th and 5th grades approaching 30, 33 kids in a class. I'm seeing some first grades approaching 31 students at the Angelo School in a first grade class. So that's unacceptable. That's why we have to look at those as priority items. So what I'd like to ask you tonight, with that surplus that we have, and also, I'm trying to put a positive spin. If you can remember Title I, and I'll get back to my request. But when you look at Title I a year ago, if you look under Title IIA, we lost close to $450,000 on July 18th. We just got our estimates. Karen McCarthy has started to put together that information for me. And under the different titles, so Title I is for, again, based on our census, based on poverty, based on a number of factors, but we ended up with a loss of almost $89,000 this year in Title I. Title IIA is the support we use for our coaching, for our associate principals, for a number of supporting instruction positions. We lost $62,000. The good news is under Title IVA, that is a new category they added a year ago. It's for social and emotional support. It can be for student support. We have a gain of $275,000. So that's better than coming to you last year with the $450,000.
Staying in that same vein.
Sure.
Before I forget, Mr. Petronio, I know that the governor had proposed more money for something very similar to that from the state budget for more.
Yeah. School safety,
Yeah.
security.
Have we gotten any numbers on that?
We're hearing, and I think they're putting it under a mental health bill is what it is.
Okay.
And the governor is proposing, because of what we're seeing obviously around the country, making sure that before we have a student making a school not safe for a number of reasons, he's putting together in his budget, I don't know how that money will come to us. I'm sure we will benefit from that. But you're right, that is additional money right now that the governor, I think, is looking, and I think it's in this year's budget.
Well, it's a surplus from FY18, right? And I think he's going to turn those into grant funds. So basically, he's going to pull them out of the, FY18 surplus and set them aside, and then communities have to apply for it.
Okay.
So we will stay on top of that. I know Deputy Superintendent Thomas is already, looking at that area. So the reason I give you these totals, and we're just kind of unpacking this, is as much as I didn't like to hear 89,000 and 62,000, a net gain in Title IV, which is fairly new, is able to support instruction, is able to support social and emotional, is up by 275. It's a gain of over $100,000. So better that than, again, what we were dealing with last year.
Can we use that money for positions? Adjustment counselors?
Yes.
Okay.
But the one thing I have to do is I have to see how because we've lost some in the other
Right.
two areas. So it's a pretty open area. I mean, obviously, there are mandates as to how you can spend the different monies.
Right.
So we just got this money, and as I said, I asked Karen to kind of give me an idea. The other thing I have to let you all know, that something that changed a year ago is there are amounts that have to go to private schools, in our encatchment area. And it directly is given to them. If they don't, before it was they would request it. Many times they did not request it, but we have Cardinal Spellman, Trinity Catholic, Seventh-day Adventist. Those are the St. Bridget's and Abington, actually. So that's our encatchment area for Title I, and we do share those funds. They also have entitlements that go to those areas. Karen's done an excellent job working with the private and parochial schools for their fair share. So, as I said, I'm trying to put a positive spin on this. I wish we didn't lose any money, but in the end, it's a net gain for us of over $100,000. So we'll work those figures and get back to you. Getting back to my request from you is, as we wait for the governor and the state to finish their budget process, we want to be able to move on this quickly. We're quickly approaching the beginning of August. We do have 46 teachers that are out. I would like to request the opportunity to use to bring back 20 positions, and I'm not saying I'm bringing back every one of them. I need to study them at the middle, the high school, and the elementary to be able to, make class sizes appropriate, because again, we're still registering students. So I want to start to move on them. But with the surplus of over almost $1 million, I'd like to be able to use that at my discretion to bring back our teachers at the middle of the high school and the elementary, up to 20.
Where are we with the sub-budget?
We've replenished what we've taken. So when we talked about the monies coming in, if you remember, we hedged our bets in a number of areas. Aldo, you can speak to that, but that money has gone back to where?
Our budget is at $588,000. We have spent this past year at $1 million. So we were budgeted again for FY18 for $588, but that budget was overspent. So we began this year with $1.5 million in there, and then as we were trying to, settle our budget,
we used it to bring
brought
back
down.
teachers.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly what we did.
So we'll be starting the year with $588,000.
How much would 20 positions translate into monetarily?
About $850,000.
So that would basically spend everything?
And that would
Almost.
still leave out, if you take 20 away from 46, you still have 26 positions that are out.
You are asking to be able to bring back teachers at your discretion. You and I had a conversation before about my concern with the unknown being down a classroom teacher. Is that a position that you're considering filling?
The unknown was actually on the list with, I believe it was their grade 4 and 5.
Okay.
So June Saban McGuire had given me at this point, and like I said, people are still registering. This was as of Friday. I think she looked at the numbers and saw where the high numbers were and labeled 10 positions that were concerning at the elementary level. 2 were from the unknown. I think I have the list here. I just assume not go over the list at this point because it's subject to change, which is why I want the discretion to be able to look at those numbers as they change.
Thank you.
And I will talk to you, Lisa, about a meeting we had with the state, a very positive meeting about the unknown. I was very pleased.
Good.
That was last week. So, here it is right here. The schools that we were looking at, and I won't give grades, but we had the Angelo, the Gilmore, the Baker, the Arnone, the Raymond twice, the Davis, the Hancock, the Angelo, the Kennedy. So as you can see, it's a wide range of schools that have class sizes either approaching 30 or over 30. I have one that had average class size of 5th grade, 34 students in it. So these are areas that we're going to have to make some decisions, and as I said, I was actually hopeful I could bring back 25 teachers out of that 46. I know Mr. Petronio was concerned because next year we're fighting the same budget deficit if things do not change. But we have to open the doors and we have to make sure we saw what it was like this year. If you remember, when nothing transpired last year, that was when we went into our substitute budget, and it was actually later in August that we wanted to be. I'm hoping this is going to be settled within the 10-day period that the governor has, and then hopefully the state will finish the budget process.
Mr. Sullivan?
If I'd just like to, I'll make the motion to bring back the 20 teachers, but I'd like to make one statement first. Although this is probably the best budget we've seen in the last 2 years, I don't think we've seen any green on any budget that we've seen. This is almost fabulous.
Well, correct. The fact that the House increased it and the Senate went even more shows that I think that the advocacy that we've been pushing and fighting them and been in the news, I think they've looked and said, you know, we've got to send some more money their way because they know that we're going to sue. And
It's worked, although. I think both of you have done a good job.
a study that was done by the Mass Budget and Finance private think tank in Boston went through all the districts. They said Brockton is underfunded $49 million per year. That's how much they've shorted us. The fact that the formula is not working. They specifically mentioned Brockton. The formula is not, so if they had given us the proper health insurance increases, the proper ELL and SPED and poverty increases, we would have $49 million more dollars. So I told them I would take 20%. I said, give me 10. I'll but
My question, Aldo, is you had mentioned the governor has 10 days.
yes,
Is 10 days to approve it and sign it? Is that what that
Yes.
is? And 4 days have gone by?
I think 4 or 5, when it was last Wednesday, I think.
I think it was Wednesday. It was definitely not Thursday, Friday, so it's either Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm just,
Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday. So today would be the 4th business day. But it's, I
What's the chances of him changing his mind and not giving us this?
have no idea.
But it could be, it could happen.
I don't see why he wouldn't. There's not a revenue problem with the state. So,
and he couldn't target Brockton. I mean, you have to, it's a
Right.
formula.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'd like to make the motion to bring back 20 teachers.
Why don't we first let Lisa chime in and then...
Okay.
Wait till after the motion. It didn't have to do with the motion.
And I want to say, when we say teachers, there could be a guidance counselor in there. I know the high school had a guidance person, so I'm talking about professional staff when I say teachers.
All right. Why don't we do this?
Change the motion?
Well, the mayor has just arrived, so why don't we take a 1-minute recess, and then I will slide into my spot, and then the mayor can come up here. So why don't we just do a quick 1-minute recess? Can you make a motion for a 1-minute recess?
Yes, I'd make a motion for a recess
Okay.
at 7:30.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, I will switch seats, and the mayor will move into the chair position. Okay, 1-minute recess. Thank you.
I will apologize to the members of the committee for being a little late this evening. I'm sorry. We had a program at the library tonight, an opening of the Frederick Douglass exhibit that I had committed a long time ago to attend, and I got in and out as fast as I could, but still had me running a few minutes late. Ms. Plant, did you have the floor when we took the break? Or?
Well, I deferred so that Tim could. He was about to make a motion, and my comment had nothing to do with the motion.
Okay, so we're...
A little bit.
So right now, we are discussing the superintendent's request to bring back,
I asked for 20 teaching professional positions out of the 46 that remain. RIFT, I said I wouldn't necessarily use every one of them, but I want the ability. Our next school committee meeting isn't until August 14th, and I want to be able to be prepared, to bring teachers back if need be. I talked about reviewing elementary. There was some numbers coming in from middle school, and I believe I had 4 positions from the high school today. During our executive team, we were reviewing the positions.
so right now there are 46 positions that have not been recalled?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And
It's right here now.
are you okay if I ask a question or two, Tim, before you go? Okay. So how many, could you update us on where we're at on MTAs and paras? Because I am extremely concerned that MTAs and paras give us a lot of bang for the buck, and when we're living with larger class sizes, having those extra professionals in the classroom makes a big difference. And
Well, Mayor, I will have to tell you that in speaking with the principals, one of the most important things, and I heard this all year long, was that they were struggling because they did not have additional support in the schools. There wasn't an extra para. There wasn't an extra MTA. It didn't matter what group. We sat down with every one of the schools. I brought the whole executive team in, and we heard that from every single school. So, while I recognize that, we had discussion about it today during executive team, in looking to, if we were going to have larger than not class sizes, then we would have to look at bringing back MTAs and paras. So my asking for the 20 was looking at, just giving us some room to look at some priority positions. But again, we'll look across the board at our MTAs, and I think it was MTAs is what we were looking for.
so MTAs and paras, and I mean, the other concern I've got to share with the committee is that every year I worry about the sustainability of these positions. We're in this vicious cycle of spending every dime we've got to recall teachers to turn around and lay them off again the next year. And it's, and Superintendent, I understand that you're doing the best you can for the classroom. But, I mean, at some point we've got to bite the bullet and get by without a couple positions and think about spending the money elsewhere, because if we're just going to lay them off again at this 100 layoffs every year and see how many we can bring back, it's brutal. And I know it's not our fault. The state is underfunding us. But I am worried about sustainability. Bringing positions back just for the sake of letting them go again next year doesn't seem to me to be a great course of action. Ms. Plant?
I certainly agree with your sentiment, and I don't think anyone here enjoys having to keep doing this every year. But when I do see what our classroom sizes are, and I do recognize the value of our MTAs and our paraprofessionals, we also recognize that we can't have just a para or just an MTA run a class. So if in some of these instances we're looking at eliminating a classroom, I mentioned a specific concern at the Arnone School, which we already had some great concerns about. And if we're not recalling an actual teacher, then I know that those classroom sizes are still going to be big. Perhaps you can put somebody in there, but that's still a large classroom size, which for some of our students is a distraction just to even being in a larger classroom.
And I understand all that. I think you get 2 MTAs for the price of 1 teacher, and you get more back.
That doesn't work. 2 MTAs equal, that's our joke in childcare. Oh, do 2 aides equal a teacher with 2 MTAs?
No, it doesn't, but I know that you're not going to solve 100 overcrowded classrooms with 4 teachers. But 20 MTAs or paras put into 20 classrooms helps those teachers manage a class that's too large by having the second adult aide. I understand they're aides. They don't replace certified teachers for a minute. I know that. But I also know if a teacher's got 31 or 32 kids in a class, and they're able to divide up and have the MTA or the para working with one small group while they work with another group, a very difficult situation for the teacher gets a little more manageable. I mean, I think they do bring value. We need everybody. We need all hands on deck.
I'm not sure if the superintendent does see a way that maybe we are looking at bringing back, I mean, you did have MTAs on your list?
We absolutely
Yeah.
did. We had a discussion. We put priority items up on the board today. We, as I said, we looked at about 8 positions at the middle school. There were 4 at the high school. And I just kind of read to you some of the places where the class sizes were getting larger. There were about 10 at the elementary. I'm not saying we're bringing every one of those back. I wanted some leeway to be able to look and see where the priorities end up being, if we could move, some of the classrooms around. And our next group, and that's why I had Aldo Petronio talk about, are there other funding streams? Now, I can't say, and last year I'll be the first one to say we listed 11 different places we thought money was coming from, and not one of them came through. And that was when we went in, we went into the sub-budget last year in August just to open the doors, if you recall. So, we're not quite at that position this year. We are looking at some money coming in possibly with our direct certification. I know they're studying that in this budget. I'm not talking about the review for the budget for next year. We're looking at money coming from the state and federal government. The federal government money really is coming for FY18, not FY19. And the state money is for FY19, and that is for the hurricane victims. I don't know, you're looking at that maybe being about $270,000?
A little less, about 240,000.
Too bad they didn't do that when we took the students from Haiti a few years ago, huh? Mr. Minicello.
Arrived, Mayor, I asked the question, basically, what does 20 positions translate into in terms of funding, which translates into almost all of the surplus, not quite, but almost. What if we authorized up to 13 or so and kept a little portion to review for MTA or para positions or something like that, so that our next school committee meeting is in what, 3 weeks? So, by then, we could relook at this and see if there's any more funding, or if not, then where that last, portion of funding, should go, I guess.
I don't know what the exact number is, but I want to be supportive of the superintendent, but I would feel a lot better if we left ourselves a little leeway for the next meeting to be able to make decisions, or even
We'll start to look and get back to you.
14, 15. I would just like to see us hang on to just a little flexibility for the next meeting.
I think 13 or 14 would, I don't know, I think would give you enough to be able to plug some holes.
I'll report back to you on the 14th exactly. We're meeting next Tuesday we have everybody back. June Saber-McGuire was on vacation this week, so we will have all of our administrators back, and we'll give you exactly what we're bringing back and what the numbers are.
So,
And we'll take a look at the MTAs and see if we can start to bring back some support positions.
so 13 not being I guess, a traditionally negative number. Mr. Sullivan, why don't you think about a motion for 14?
What I was going to do was change the 20 teachers to, it was going to be 20 professional staff and/or teachers, and I'll just change it to 14 teachers and/or professional staff.
I think the school committee wants to be supportive and give you as much as we can, but I think a little bit of financial flexibility for the August meeting, when we know if the governor signed the budget, maybe Aldo has identified some additional funds by then. I'm really afraid to take the chance of spending money we don't have, or spending all we do and then identifying some other needs that we won't have any money to pay for.
I'll work with that.
Can we work with 14 for this meeting, and then, but
Yes.
to be revisited at the next meeting? Okay. How about a motion then, Mr. Sullivan?
The motion that we bring back 14 teachers / professional staff at this meeting.
You know what, on the motion, I just have one other question. Superintendent, would any of these be adjustment counselors?
We had one guidance counselor, but we did talk about additional adjustment counselors, but they weren't part of this first round. Guidance counselor, I just said. I'm sorry, yes. But the
Adjustment or
South had a half-
guidance?
It was guidance.
So it was splitting between
Correct.
Guidance.
So
They
do we
had-
have any adjustment counselor positions that are still out right now?
We have no we did not cut any adjustment counselors, but over the past year, we had cut a couple of them.
Yeah.
I believe somebody's sharing a couple of job shares.
and the high school still only has 3.
I mean, I just, in some of our prior meeting conversations about school safety and identifying students that are at risk and trying to get students engaged, and I mean, this is something school districts are taking a hard look at all over the country. How do we, if we've got kids that have got issues going on, that we try to identify them and engage them earlier? And I got a feeling our caseloads are very high for our adjustment
Those
counselors.
are high, but one of the things you'll hear me talk about tonight is our focus right now has been to really support our staff. I have had what's called the Superintendent's Advisory this year, which involved teachers. It wasn't administrators, it was teachers from all of the schools. And at the last meeting, we kind of summarized really a lot of the talk that went on all year long and a lot of the frustration. And some of it, and I'm going to use the term tools in the toolbox. So our professional development is focused around social and emotional learning, trauma-sensitive schools. We've had, for our administrators, we did it in our principal academies at the end of the year. We have people coming in that are actually going to work with our staff in how to, deal. So it isn't just having the adjustment counselor, who is, again, it's a former job I held. I know what kind of support that is for the classroom teacher and for our administration. So we also have to start to really resource if we're talking about class sizes of 28, 29, and 30, that's where the teachers are getting very frustrated with those youngsters that need the additional support. And you know what, Mayor, the other thing that I'll say is when I'm out there talking to colleagues, we're so far ahead of the game with adjustment counselors, meaning we never made that a throwaway position. And when things got tough in Brockton, and yes, we cut 15% across the board last year, and that impact of the adjustment counselors was clearly felt across the district. And that's why we did not, this year, there was not one elimination of an adjustment counselor. So we are looking to build that back, but with the 14 that you're giving me, and they're correct, there were 2 guidance counselors, one from the high school, and one because remember the number of students going to South from the changing of the 6th grade at North.
You get 12 classroom teachers and a couple of
And
guidance
2,
counselors.
correct, that's what's on the list.
And with the ability to consider, to continue the discussion at the August meeting.
Well, you mentioned, or Mr. Gormley mentioned the governor's, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
The
Bill.
Title IV money we can spend on that. We possibly have $100,000 we could spend on an adjustment counselor,
Okay.
as well as money that the governor, you probably caught this too, is set aside for
Right.
school districts to hire more support staff
no, I was
around
already
these things.
thinking
So
about
I think
that
we
might
might
be a
have
place
some
we
money
get some
coming
money
in
for
to
that.
increase that number above what we
Yeah.
had previously. So I think maybe it might be prudent to hold off until the next meeting to add those people, just so we can get.
Oh, no, I
classroom-
wasn't, I just wanted to discuss it, that's all.
Oh, I thought you meant right, with this
No,
number.
I'm
Okay.
fine with the 14 that's on the floor. I just wanted to talk about it. So the motion on the floor by Mr. Sullivan is to approve the recall of 14 positions, and based upon the discussion, that's probably 12 teachers and 2 guidance counselors. So with that motion's on the floor, do we have a second? Mr. Minchella's second. All in favor?
Thank you.
Approved.
And next, because of the change that we made with taking the 6th grade out of North Middle School, with, again, our plan, we're actually very excited to be able to apply. Again, I'll talk about the funding for Mass School Building Assistance, and hopefully being one of our first Compass schools to go through renovation. But one of the things that we did have was we had to pull back on our school choice across the district. And we talked to the school committee, again, about not honoring appeals, but having the deputy's office, at the behest of the superintendent, start to have conversations if there were parents that were concerned about the placements that they received for their middle schoolers. So Deputy Superintendent Thomas, would you like to come up and we can update the school committee on where we're at with not only the policy, but I do think, and we've talked about this for a number of years, I do think we need to revisit that policy in light of looking at neighborhood schools, looking at students going to school in their kind of catchment area, and not having students go to schools clear across the city unless there's a valid reason.
Yeah, so right now, we've had 32 requests for transfers at the middle school level that have come through my office. I've been able to grant 18 of those. And I've done that. First, number one consideration, is there a sibling that attends the school? And it might have been missed. And that was a few of those that we were able to put and keep siblings together. And then the second one is, did I have room? There are some kids that have left to go to charter that's open space. In some schools, some people wanted to change from a school that's large, either west or Plouffe, and they wanted to go to east or south or the Davis, so I was able to make those moves easily. And then I did it obviously by distance to the school. If it was a school that's, closer to your house, and that somebody was a half mile and didn't get assigned to that school, so I did make that change. So out of the 32 so far, I've granted 18. I've told the parents that have called that this will go into at least the second or third week in August, and unfortunately, if more students leave us, or students end up leaving us for moving out of the city or going to private school, and there's openings, then I would be able to grant their transfer. So it's actually gone more smoothly than I thought it would. So out of about 1,600 sixth graders that need to be placed, there were about 32 calls, and so far I've been able to take care of about 18 of those. And I might be able to take care of more as we get into August and closer to the school year.
So basically, the superintendent said, take all the angry parents and send them down to the assistant superintendent's office.
And I apologize to parents, because this is, I apologize I sent them to the deputy, but this has been upheaval for us, and I do believe in the end this is the right thing to do. I think we're pleased about the direction that we're headed. We're able to use those dollars in ways that we truly needed to. So I think it's...
And I have, and other people I've spoken to, very few have been people that, there are a few that were going to go to North, but they actually were very, they understood that North has to be renovated, and basically were not upset by that at all, and just wanted to not go to the school that they were assigned to, so I was able to work those out. But people have been pretty positive about knowing that we have to start renovating schools, and there's a facilities master plan, and that the committee and the mayor is now going to put that in place, and they were thrilled about that, because people know of the need of the facility. So that has not been something that's been a pushback.
The reality is we've lost about 300 middle school students to the charter, and so that forces us to have to realign those middle schools. And if we don't want to move students out of their existing school and try to allow 7th and 8th graders to stay right where they're already at, then that means the only place you've got some flexibility to shift around is with the incoming 6th graders. So I think we knew it would be a challenge this year. I'm actually relieved to hear that the percentage of unhappy families is as low as it is right now. So, but I think the other thing we got to think about too is transportation costs. And in this budget, I think we all acknowledge that transportation is probably not fully funded in this budget, and we're still going to have to find some more money for transportation as we go along. So that being the case, and I know I'm oversimplifying it, but when you talk to families, we just explain that we need to get students attending the school closest to their home as much as possible, unless for some reason that student has some special needs for their education that aren't available at that school. But generally speaking, we just got to get back towards neighborhood schools and reduce our transportation expenses. So, Ms. Plant, I think you had your hand up.
A little bit anyway.
Okay.
First of all, I was going to say those numbers seem very low, so I think, for for the most part.
Could be a
you
lot
know,
worse.
We've done a great job. But I just wanted to clarify, if we have room at another middle school which is out of their zone, we would allow it if there was space, but they would provide their own transportation.
Actually, I have about 4 of these that I made it clear to the parent that I can grant the request, but you would have to transport, and they did not have a problem with that.
Okay, great. Thank
Yep.
you very much.
So I make that clear right from the start, that there's no transportation, because there is, you know, there's really no bus stops in the area, but there was openings at the schools, and they could transport, so I've made that available to them.
But we do think that it is highly outdated. Back in 1995, there was money that came along with, and it was under school choice, that we got, I think, 90 cents on the dollar. We built 5 schools at the time. You know, we're beyond that. Our schools are certainly diversified. That's not an issue with us. I think we really do need to look at, we've been talking about the transportation for a long time. Now watching what's happened with the middle school, I do think that when we talk about our subcommittees, I think that's a subcommittee that we need to start at the beginning of the year. That's going to be my recommendation tonight, and we start to look at the policy for the so-called choices and really start to take a look at more neighborhood schools.
Because under the choices, I had somebody call that actually lives pretty close to the Davis, and one of their first option was west. And, you know, that's actually under our policy. They're allowed to choose
choice.
west, and it really doesn't make much sense. As far as obviously when you know, with transportation as well, it doesn't make much sense. So I agree, it's something we really need to look at before we register students for 6th grade next year.
It's our desegregation plan at the time.
Exactly,
Our
yep.
choice is desegregation.
Ms. White, you all set? Okay. Mr. Sullivan?
Questions for Kathy Smith, the superintendent. You had said to me, I'm not sure if it was a meeting ago or 2 meetings ago, yes, we're going to renovate North Junior High, but the 7th and 8th grade, if new people move into the neighborhood, they were going to be welcomed in that school. Absolutely. But I was wondering if you could just say that, repeat that, because a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah.
We know the 6th grade is gone, but 7th and 8th, if new people move in, they can go there.
And I want to thank your administration at North, your teachers. You know, they have been very professional. I think they're actually very excited about the opportunity for the district this fall to put forward an application with Mass School Building Assistance to put in to renovate, and this is part of, again, our facility master plan. That was one of the recommendations, to renovate North Junior High School, North Middle School, and even take a look at expanding. We talked about a science wing, we talked about fields. You know, we're excited, and again, it's down the road a little bit. It's not happening overnight, but it allows us to make a plan. But Mr. Sullivan brings up a good point. The 6th graders have been reassigned to our other middle schools throughout our district. They will be welcomed. And our present 7th and 8th graders that are there, we do have openings. If you move next door to North Middle School, there's an opening for your 7th grader, and they can stay there for 7th and 8th grade. So if you're an 8th grader, and kids do come to us in 8th grade, they come to us at all ages, all grade levels, they would be welcomed in as 8th graders and then go on to their school of choice for high school. So we'll continue to work with families. Our Parent Information Center has done an excellent job, as this is the time of year that we start to get really busy with people moving in or out of the city. So we will continue to address that, Mr. Sullivan. If you have any constituents that have questions about that, again, they can go to the Parent Information Center.
Well, I did have a couple of phone calls from people at Battles Farm, and they were shocked that they couldn't go to North Junior. I said, what are you talking about? You can go there.
As 7th and 8th grade.
7th and 8th graders,
Yeah.
but they were told they couldn't. And it's no.
Yeah, I'll make sure we check on that, but I know,
I haven't had a call, but I'll make sure parent information is doing that, because we met with Soraya, and
We're
she
very
knew
clear.
exactly about, but I'll call tomorrow and talk to her.
Except in 7th and 8th
Oh,
graders.
yeah, yep.
as a matter of fact, we need to.
That actually helps us to alleviate the class size at the other schools
Right.
that we had to move 6th graders into, so I'd rather keep more 7th and 8th graders at North. Actually, it works out better for us.
Let's get the word out then.
Yep, I'll make sure.
Okay. Okay, as far as the strategic plan update, I will, again, we've been in draft form for a number of months. We talked about it during our retreat last January with our vertical and horizontal articulation. We are going to be doing a district-wide curriculum audit this year. So as we now have new frameworks in place, based on Common Core, based on your MCAS 2.0, based on a number of things, based on our struggling budget. We have to be very careful about the resources that we're bringing into the system. I talked to you before about piloting some programs. We've brought together all our levels, elementary through middle and high school. Our professional development is already planned for next year for every one of our half days, for our meeting days with our teachers in their after-school meetings, which are required. So I do want to bring that to you. I also mentioned just briefly to Mrs. Plant about the Our Known School. We had our first meeting with our new support team. There's quite a few new teams in the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Sue Berglund heads up the district support team that'll be supporting the work at the Our Known School this year. Number one, they understand our district. They understand some of the struggles, but there's certainly no excuses. I'm very pleased that we've been able to put in grant funding, which last year, if you remember, that also was money that we did not receive, and that was late June. While I still haven't had the official word, it's a very positive comment about the grant that was written by our team at the Our Known. So I've worked with Sue Berglund before when actually I came into the district as a new superintendent. We were behind with our educator eval under our Race to the Top money that we had accepted. And there was a lot of pressure from the department. Susan Berglund was one of our collaborators, and we did an excellent job together. So I'm very pleased to have her on board and the team from DESE. We met last week with our district leadership with Principal Colleen Proudler. So I feel very good about the plan that we've started to put in place, and we'll have Colleen come and update you early on. As far as other good news, our international baccalaureate scores, Todd Erickson, who is our supervisor of IB at the high school, sent me a note telling me that we had 3 students who were awarded full IB diplomas and 112 scores of 4 or higher on our honors level subjects, where students receive 6 to 8 credits in our UMass system. That's a lot for parents that, again, are looking to not send their kids to college for 4 or 5 years. It allows them, whether they do a semester abroad, not to lose those credits. So that's a real bonus when you talk about international baccalaureate, similar to our advanced placement classes, a different diploma, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I know that was, we'd like to offer our kids everything we can. Last year we were kind of looking at that. It's an expensive program, but it's well received, and the kids do an excellent job.
The work that those teachers do is really amazing, what they have to do to get those scores and prepare for the tests. And I remember meeting with some of those teachers when at parent conferences for my daughter, and hearing how they're spending weeks upon weeks of going through the tests, and I think that they deserve a lot of credit for all the work they've done in that program. It's rigorous for the students as well as the teachers.
As I said, we're very pleased with, and I know, having been a parent, and a number of you have done the same thing and have paid for college. I can remember at the time it was advanced placement, and just having that little bit of leeway to, like I said, take a semester abroad or take a class that you might want to, take in your schedule. It's financially a real bonus that you offer to students, and not every district does that. A lot of districts, and I'll tell you the other thing, if you look at the new accountability system, you receive additional points for when you're looking at the number of students taking advanced placement, taking honors level courses, taking international baccalaureate. We're having discussion today, and I loved the discussion at a middle school of looking at, we'll have our international baccalaureate, but looking at having advanced classes or so-called tag classes at all of our middle schools. Looking at really pushing those students. Sometimes your English language learners, come to you learning the language, but they're excellent in the areas of math or sciences, and starting to push them into those higher level courses and letting them succeed to the point that when they catch up with your English language, because it isn't just always everything. In other words, you don't have to take every course. Not everybody has a strength in every area. So we're working with Dr. Cancel. We had some great conversation today, but that's what we're moving towards. Not just having specific areas. We talked about that at the George School. when you talk about your 3 languages coming in there with your global studies school, we don't want kids leaving there in 4th grade to go to a tag program at the Angelo School. I'd rather create a tag program at the George School for those students that are there. So we'll start to look at that and also see if that's something that we expand to some of our other elementary schools. But we certainly are going to look at our middle schools and start to push those kids into advanced placement or honors level courses. Next on the list is I'm requesting approval by the school committee to continue on the Renaissance Advisory Board. I did my 2-year term. I have a letter from them. And I was pleased about it because it provides professional development for me as a superintendent with, it's a very small group, it's about 20 superintendents from around the country. They've asked to extend my tenure for 1 year. Basically, the letter that came from them said that my contributions of engagement and participation at the meetings were important to them, and they would like to offer an extension for 1 year. That extension requires the approval of the school committee. So it would take me through, I believe the date is next September of 19. It would be 2 more meetings outside of the district. There are also 2 conference calls. There are 4 meetings during the year. With the meetings that are outside, they bring in big-name speakers that Mike Schmoker, who talks about focus schools. He's written about Brockton High School. I loved meeting him. Actually had him come into the district this year. So it really does provide an opportunity for the superintendent, or if not myself, I would love to be able to recommend to Renaissance other members of our leadership team to continue when I'm finished.
I'll weigh in real quick. It's important. I go to a couple of large mayors conferences, but I belong to a group of mayors called the Mayors Innovation Project, and it's only 40 or 50 mayors probably from around the country, and it's a real think tank when they get together twice a year, and I always come home with all kinds of stuff, and it sounds very similar to this, the small group of whether it's mayors or superintendents getting a chance to share ideas, and I think it's really important.
I leave on a Wednesday. It's usually 2 days out of, it's all day Thursday and Friday. So you get there on Wednesday and it starts Thursday and Friday. It's 2 days in December and May.
Make a motion to approve the superintendent's continued participation for an additional year in the Renaissance Advisory Board project.
Motion's been made, properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you for your support. Also, next I want to talk about the Portugal trip slideshow. I think I can finally take a breath and start to put something together. I will say Dr. Julie Hackett, who was the superintendent in Taunton, has left for Lexington, just started on July 1st in Lexington. She was the one that originally with Senator Mark Pacheco got the grant for the superintendents to go. And she did a report on all the schools we visited, what the contexts were. Already I see Kelly Jones up in the audience, and we have had connections with FLOD, which was the organization that supported the trip, of looking for teacher exchanges. They're so pleased about wanting to highlight Brockton. So the superintendents I went with are looking to start Portuguese dual language programs. We're way ahead of that. So they're very excited about the Global Studies School. So I want to be able to present to you, but I want you to know Dr. Hackett did wonderful work putting together the report. I'd like to share that report with you, and at the same time, share it with the community. I'll also probably do a slideshow if there are members of the community that would like to come, and I'll be happy to speak about the trip and all my exciting food choices that everyone will be happy to hear. It is my home movies. That's right. That's absolutely right. It was just wonderful, and
there was no discussion of taking the chair of the school committee on that trip, huh?
No, you probably would have really enjoyed it. You had to see me. I think I've talked to you about the day in the cafeteria and we truly were visiting one of their technical schools, and they were so excited to present a very special meal to us. And those of you that don't know me, I'm really picky with my food, and we went through the line, and it was a fish with a head on it that they were serving, and I really struggled, and most members of my group loved it, absolutely loved it. So I was very polite, and I took my fish head, and proceeded to take pictures of it. So anyway, I'll be glad to.
We're excited about the Portuguese immersion program.
Okay, well, that I loved. That
Yeah.
was, the schools were terrific. So under recommendations for subcommittees, I do want to talk to you about, under superintendent contract, it really is the evaluation, again, with the ratings. The state is being very tough on getting those ratings in for everybody, so I am busy doing the ratings for all of my executive team members. You approved the goals sometime in March. I've been working on them all year long. I'll give you that evidence. I'm starting to have my team put together that evidence for you, so I'd like to be able to take care of that sooner than later. The other one is the policy manual. Dr. Tarasi is, again, we kind of get sidetracked by the budget season. I think the next one up was Dr. Moran and our HR office, looking at their policies, and we'll continue to go through. Last year you got through, I think, at least 3 areas. So we're starting to make a dent in this, I mean, believe it or not. So I'd like to go back and set up the policy manual. And we talked about the school assignments. And the other one, and Mr. D'Agostino isn't here, but I promised him I would say this, is I do think we need to look at our facility situation for next year. I don't see any big moves. I think you made the move this year. You'll still be in the middle of working through the North situation with applying for the Mass School Building Assistance. I don't anticipate us closing another school. We don't have places to really put anybody. The only thing that you can eventually start to look at is, as we grow and pull back our kindergarten age and grow our preschool program, we're going to have to start to identify space for our preschool. So those would be the things I'd at least, even if we just have a meeting, I really don't want to have the meeting in March. I would like to have the meeting early in the fall. We can start to project what our budget looks like, and if there's anything that you do want us to look at as far as facilities. So those are my recommendations. And under good news, and I know, Mayor, you're going to join me on this, we went to, and Mr. Minicello, you both did an excellent job. We went to the Edison Academy graduation on Thursday evening. Congratulations to Dr. Cobbs, all the teachers, the support staff, and what was the number, 265?
265 graduates this year. I think 216 were there to physically get their diplomas, and it's a great program. I mean, when we talk about alternative pathways, I mean, it uses the facility here. We're using existing staff, but for Tom and the superintendent were both there. You're looking at 265, mostly young adults, that probably would not have high school diplomas if not for that program. And not only are they earning diplomas, but they've all got a plan and a path as they're graduating out of Edison. Every single one of them has chosen some type of career or educational path as to where, not just getting the diploma, but now what is that going to enable them to do? What's the next step? And the student speakers, I just find amazing. I walk out of there inspired when you listen to some of the stories.
Mr. Minicello asked every one of those students that walked across the stage where they were going. And I happened to be standing beside him, and it was really interesting. I don't know if you picked up on listening. I'm sorry, Mrs. Plant was there also. And we were hearing them say Massasoit, zoology, Bridgewater, UMass Boston, career. But it really, I felt the same way, that these are kids in any other district. You have always created alternative pathways. And there are people that aren't here. I don't know if any of you remember Shayla Stewart. So Shayla came to us as an entrepreneur. She was a visionary, loved working with Shayla. She knew where the grants were. She knew, programs to begin. And I can remember being with her when they opened the door to creating that kind of support, money-wise, Chapter 70 money, for those students. And I want to say this to kids out there. If you're 16 years old, if you've dropped out of school, if you're finding that you're struggling in the school you're presently attending, this Edison Academy is an excellent opportunity. Again, 265 kids, being able to re-engage and go on to do so many things. The high school diploma is important for anything that you're going to do. I don't care if it's the military. It is important. Jobs, I mean, they'll ask, do you have a high school diploma? The simplest job. So it really does give a lot of opportunity. And thank you to people like Shayla, to Laurie Silva, to the whole team that years ago really developed, named this program. When I look out and see it, it is truly growing, your own program. So.
And the numbers were amazing this year. I mean, they're up almost 100 graduates over a year ago, and this is a program that's only in its 6th year, and the first year was a pilot. It wasn't big in numbers the first year. So, I mean, just in really 5 years of operation, the numbers are through the roof, and it's about creating opportunities, and, you get young people that come here as immigrants and are overage, undercredited, they're just not going to get to the finish line in time in a traditional high school setting, but they're a big part of the future of the city too, and they just need the opportunity, and this program provides the opportunity. You always see a few older students there. They're not all kids. And what I find exciting about it, it's a lot like when you take a class at Massasoit. They're all there because they want to be. They're working a job, they have children, they've got a lot of other stuff going on in their life, but yet they made a commitment to attend class and get the real education with the real diploma. It's not a high set. It's a legitimate high school diploma that came with a first-class education. Just wasn't in the traditional model, and that's great.
Didn't you have a mother that you whispered in my ear that had 2 daughters that graduated last year in the program? The mother finished this year, or maybe it was Soraya DeBarros. Dr. DeBarros was standing with us also. Yeah, it was. And she said, the 2 daughters graduated last year. The mother wanted to go back and finish her diploma.
Yeah.
So congratulations. It was just, I agree, it was inspiring.
And the kids that do connect with Dr. Cobbs, you can't go there and not realize that he has a great relationship with those students. Mr. Minicello.
It's really undeniable that it fills a void, because when you say, just think about it, 260 kids. That's more than a building at Brockton High School graduating. That's more than a high school. I mean, 260 some odd kids. I mean, add another building to our Brockton High graduation, and it's a little bit more. So I mean, it goes to show you the niche, the need that it provides people. I'm not going to just say young people, because like you said, there was one gentleman there that spoke, and I think he was about 30 years old. And I liked what he said, that his fiancée told him, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And he finished. He's moving on to whatever his next step's going to be. But it really is a wonderful program that fits the bill for many of our citizens here in Brockton, that for whatever reason, the traditional path just didn't work, and this is a wonderful alternative that is successful. And these people are doing it, I'm going to say the hard way, the non-traditional way. They're not satisfied sitting on the sidelines. They want to succeed. They want a future for themselves. This is the American dream. This is what this country was founded on. And this is what, the city of Brockton does so well. It's, I've told people before, we are a city of immigrants. We've always been. It's just a matter of where people are coming from today. Yesterday it was different places. Tomorrow will be different places than today. But it just goes to show you how well this program works. And really, I think next graduation we should invite Shayla, try to find Shayla Stewart, and invite her to come and see, how it's transpired. And I mean, the success, the auditorium was packed. The balcony was full. The entire auditorium was full. It was a great family and friend night. All those kids and all those adults who graduated had something to be very proud of. It was great. It's a wonderful feeling. I enjoy going every year. So.
It is.
Okay.
What else you got, Sue?
I think
Mr. Sullivan.
If I could add one thing. How important a high school diploma is. A year ago, I applied for a part-time job. And one of the questions on the application was I had to produce a high school diploma. And I almost fell over.
Dust that off.
Debbie laughed. She says, how'd you carry that stone? But anyway, to make a long story short, the high school I went to in Boston closed, and the files got moved someplace else. So it was a long, drawn-out process to find this, because I didn't have it. I'm not even sure what happened to it. But I finally find it, and I ended up getting a part-time job. But the point is, it used to be a yes or no question. Did you graduate from high school? Now I had to produce the diploma for a lousy part-time job.
I take away from that, Tim, is they didn't believe you when you said you did. I mean, they said, prove it. Yeah.
Well, congratulations, Mr. Sullivan. I also attended with the mayor, the Rotary Club. They do such a nice job every year with their public service awards. Our recipient was Joyce Voris, a teacher at the high school. Joyce teaches, I've known Joyce forever, advanced biology, honors biology, IB biology, but she goes above and beyond. She's a mentor to the kids. Her experimentation, her environmental things that she does, you know, she is just a wonderful teacher and supports our students in a special way. So congratulations to Joyce. I know we have some pictures to share with her. And we also had, again, our firefighters, our city workers, our police officers who go above and beyond every day. And, you know, congratulations thank you to the Rotary, to Rich Hook, and to all the members that continue to be such an integral part of our community.
It's a great program.
And also two more things I just want to mention. We have all kinds of summer programs going on. As a matter of fact, and Mr. Sullivan, I'm going to let you talk about your special event on Friday night, but so many groups provide so many opportunities. We do have a summer resource guide. It is in the Brockton Public Schools. It's not only all of the Brockton programs. Tonight when I was coming up, we have the Brockton After Dark program going on right up here at Brockton High School for youngsters. I think it's 13 to 19. You know, food, opportunities, socialization, sporting events, all kinds of things for kids to do of all ages. You know, during the day we have fee-based programs. We have, again, some grant-structured programs. And it isn't just the Brockton Public Schools. There are things all over the city. So again, filled with things to do for your family. So come and grab this. The summer isn't over. It's only July 24th, and you still have, unfortunately, parents, we still have a little ways to go before the kids are back to school. So this will keep them pretty busy. And the other news, and I know you'll join me in being excited about this, and I offered an invitation. I was approached by the Commissioner's office, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. That's our new Commissioner, Jeff Riley. And he is looking at his schedule, but would like to come out and either come on opening day for staff or students. I'd like to welcome him to either. I'm sure he would be, you know, again, pleased to see our students on opening day and to see the students come back and what's happening in our classrooms. And we all know it because we're out there. You know, as soon as those kids are in, the routines are set and the school day has started. So I will wait to hear. Jay Stewart reached out to us, but we will welcome the commissioner. If not opening day, he's going to come, I think, sometime in September. And under new business, Deputy Superintendent Thomas, do you want to talk about the Gilmore School mural?
There's an artist that we've used in the past that has worked with the Summer Work and Learning, who's done several inside projects, murals inside our buildings, and did one years ago outside the building at the Keith. This came late to us, late in June, but we don't allow murals to go on the outside of schools unless they're approved by the school committee. She does great work. She has for a long time working with our students. Diodato is the last name. Brett, you want to help me with the first name?
Laura Donato.
Donato Wyatt. So she's worked with our students before. She does an excellent job. The kids really put a lot into it. And this is proposed mural, which is in the book for the Gilmore, and it would be to the right of the main office, facing out towards the parking lot, facing out towards the baseball field. So you would actually see it coming from the Enterprise Club. So again, we always get school committee approval before we put anything on the outside of a building that is out of the ordinary of a sign, a simple sign for the school. So that's why it's before you, and they would still have plenty of time to finish it before the end of the summer.
Summer work and learning program?
Yes. These are done by students with the support of the artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done a great job. They really are. I find myself driving down, coming onto Main Street from Belmont Street, and every time I see it, I'm trying to pick out who's who in the picture, and yeah, it's excellent. They're fun.
They did one at East a couple of years ago.
Yes, they
She
did that.
did
Is
the-
that the one inside?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a beautiful mural. Yeah, very nice.
She did one at my school last year in Boston, and that's how I got to know her work. She's very good. She's great with the kids, too. A few of our track club kids are working with her, and they came up to me last Monday night and said, "When are we going to get going, Mr. Gormley?" So they're chomping at the bit. So I would like to put forth a motion to approve this mural with the start date of tomorrow, because they're waiting. They've been waiting for our approval to do this. So that's my motion.
Properly seconded by Mr. Sullivan. All in favor? Approved. Very good.
This would be it. Did you put a little more color into it? It's just, I mean,
Jeez.
Well, I think it was the quality of the actual printout.
Oh,
It didn't
okay.
really come through well on
Oh,
a
okay.
PDF. There is more color in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
But the PDF that came through on the computer was not, this is the actual, this is what it's going to look like, but there'll be more color.
Swing by there and look over her shoulder and give her a couple pointers, yeah.
I'll be like, yeah, right, yeah, exactly. I'll put my little French beret artist hat on, you know, and come by and start saying, well, oh yeah.
That's my report for the evening.
All right. New business. Anyone else have any new business? Oh, no, wait a minute. Did I skip something over?
I skipped on.
No, we did the mural project is under new business. So is there any other members who'd like to bring forward any new business? Mr. Sullivan?
Yes, I'd like to bring up the principal at the Plouffe, Michelle Nazarella, does a fabulous job. And I was reading these cards, and she's taking a whole class again. This year they went to Philadelphia. This particular one is from the Museum of Farts in Philadelphia, the Betsy Ross House, Christ Church in Philadelphia, and Independence Hall in Philadelphia. And some of the things I really can't believe. They do an excellent job. And just the fact that these kids even write these cards and send them to us is, it's almost overpowering. And I just wanted to congratulate the principal, Michelle Nazarella, and everybody who went there. She does all the chaperones. Everything is all set up in advance. They do one heck of a job.
Anything else in a new business? Okay.
I'll make it quick.
This is the July summer meeting, Mr. Sullivan, just to remind you. Yeah.
I am with the DW Field Park, and this Friday night, we're having a free movie, which is The Lion King. It's going to be at the gazebo, DW Field Park on Oak Street, presented between 7 and 7:30 at night. The movie is free, and as all we ask is that everybody who goes bring a blanket to sit on or a chair. There's going to be free popcorn. The movie's going to be put on by the Busy Bee Jumpers. It's one of them large screen, digital. And there's going to be soda and water for sale at a reasonable price. And everybody is welcome.
And we'll get that out to everybody. We'll remind parents. Hopefully we'll do a Connect Ed message and just let everybody know. 7:30 is the time?
Whatever the darkness is, they're saying
Oh,
between...
yeah, it's getting darker early in
Yeah,
the...
between 7 and 7:30, they're saying.
Okay. Very good. We'll
Thank
get
you.
that message out to everybody.
Mayor's office is co-sponsoring that with the D.W. Phil Park Association, so I guess I'll have to swing by after Prava.
Do you remember how to get there?
I have to get there.
Yeah, of course I know how to get there. Okay. Anyone else with new business? If not, we'll entertain a motion. Motion to adjourn, made. Second? Second. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.